if we listen enough to ourselves and our inner pull, our inner voices, it kind of guides us. And that was one thing I acknowledged and I noticed over the years was where I was being pulled into, where I was being drawn, what resonated with me. And yes, it was generally helping others and individually helping others directly. And I guess when I was younger, I just kind of put, well, like teaching could do that, right? It's not like I necessarily desire to be in front of a classroom of kids, but at least the philosophy of teaching, of directly empowering somebody else.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here on Conversations with John. And the whole goal of this podcast is to spend time with leaders, creators, entrepreneurs, more importantly, I think individuals that are passionate about building something, or they've built something, or like many of us, they're kind of still in that building journey. But what I have learned over the years is the importance of reflecting back on the lessons and some of the challenges that we've gone through. And that's really kind of my whole goal of this podcast, is to have great conversations with these individuals and have them share with you their journey, what they've learned. Sometimes all it takes is one nugget from their, journey to help you on yours. And so I'm very excited to have with me today, Tom Passalacqua, who is our guest. Love that last name, by the way. We'll have to get into that, maybe the history of that. But Tom, it's great to see you. How you doing, man?
Good, John. Good. Doing well. How's everything going today?
Everything's great. It's a Monday morning. Spring is in the air. For those of us that are, you're in New York, I'm in Louisville. So like, I feel like we're kind of coming out that winter doldrum, and it's exciting. So anyways.
Yeah, it was a long winter. It's nice to get that change in season. So
love it. All right. So I want to hop right into your story. I know we got a chance to meet each other at the Yankee Dental meeting a couple months back. You were there presenting, and I was the DJ. And so that was it's like my alter ego, right? When do some DJ every once in a while, but it does put me in connection with great people like yourself. So I'm excited that we're doing this. So yeah, I thought a good place to start would be jump in and talk a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, cool. Appreciate that. So what I'm doing today has a unique backstory, but I'll get your listeners up to speed. I'm an executive coach and I focus on business leadership. But to get me to where we are now, I'll go back a little bit of ways. Out of high school when I was younger, I always enjoyed helping people. So that led me to pursue a career as a teacher. So my first, passion was education, and I graduated, got a master's in ed, and taught for many years throughout New York. So I'm not too far out of Manhattan. So there was a lot of really great schools that were being built, and I was a founding teacher for a number of different charter schools at that time. And really what that means is I was part of a cohort of teachers to come into a new building and design a school from the ground up. All the curriculum, all the programs, all of the physical part of it too, but really build a foundation from A to Z. It was pretty wild to do. But that really allowed me to see behind the scenes of what goes into the education, platform for a student body. And I did that for a number of years, but didn't see myself as a lifetime teacher. But I really enjoyed helping people. So I was like, all right, well, let's try something new. I want to challenge myself. I want to evolve, and found myself being pulled into sales. So my first venture into the dental field was in dental manufacturing sales. So it was just a complete, 180, just zero experience in sales or in dental. I found an opportunity. It seemed interesting and exciting, and segued from teaching. And then literally that next day, I was a sales rep in the city. So familiar territory, but completely new endeavor. And I did fairly well over those years because my approach to sales was from an education lens. I wanted to help and educate my customers and my clients and those I worked with. And I didn't necessarily approach it with, I have to sell things. I approached it with, I have to educate, I have to teach, I have to help others. And that really, complemented my success over those years, and built really great relationships, and was really able to succeed and grow that region And then I started to train other sales reps, which was like a perfect opportunity for me to kind of lean into that part of myself again. And started to do web training. I hosted during national sales meetings, and I would really enjoy having other colleagues ask me for help again. So here I was again, merging the education piece with my experience. That then segued into the DSO space. So for your listeners, a dental service organization is a management company that oversees other dental locations. So there was an opportunity about 4 years ago to get into a growing group practice out of the Northeast. They were on rapid growth. They needed someone like me that had a great network, great communication skills, great sales and marketing acumen. So I was part of the team to bring on dozens of new practices under the management company. And I did that for about 4 years. And during that time, I really wanted to lean into that part of me that was directly helping people. So that led me to pursue executive coaching. And then over the last couple of years, I've been building that arm out. And then just at the beginning of this year, decided it was time to fully, go down this road and on this journey of solopreneurship. And now I'm fully focused on my coaching.
Love that journey. And I want to go back a little bit. There's a common thread that you mentioned several times, which is this desire to help people.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from, Tom? Is that something, if you look back from when you were younger, you oftentimes will hear people, my daughter says it a lot, I want to be a teacher. And I look at some of the things that she just loves to do as a 10-year-old, and she's very helpful in nature. And so oftentimes I feel like the desire to help and combining that to get into some sort of teaching or educating, could be natural in your DNA. But where do you think that came from?
Yeah, great question. I think a couple things. If we listen enough to ourselves and our inner pull, our inner voices, it kind of guides us. And that was one thing I acknowledged and I noticed over the years was where I was being pulled into, where I was being drawn, what resonated with me. And yes, it was generally helping others and individually helping others directly. And I guess when I was younger, I just kind of teaching could do that, right? It's not like I necessarily desire to be in front of a classroom of kids, but at least the philosophy of teaching, of directly empowering somebody else. I think I really noticed that as dramatically as I did back in high school when I was an athlete and I was, pretty visible with helping others in athletics. So I would always get my classmates to ask me advice and questions of, okay, how do I get stronger? What do I got to eat? How do I get bigger? Right. And, in gym time, it was like, we're always talking about how to, get better in athletics. So I found that environment of having people ask you questions, you having value to give somebody else, them taking that advice, them using it, them succeeding. And it's like this reciprocating cycle of helping each other and growing together. And I think that really was the first time I experienced that of directly helping people. And again, that kind of led me to teaching. It could have led me to other directions too, but at least that's how I put the pieces together back then.
Anything from your childhood that you can recall of how you were or your family or what the culture was or just the temperature of some of those younger years that would have
Wow, you want to go way back? Yeah, way back. I would say, yeah, you mentioned family, right? Like we had a tight family, right? I had an older brother, younger sister. We were always close. Of course, we quarreled, but we were always there for each other. We had a great family unit. So that probably had a good foundation to it. I think one piece that comes up for me as I kind of reflect is that I always felt a little unique, a little odd, if you will. I never kind of fit into popular culture and what was popular. So I always felt like I was a little bit off of where the majority was. So that allowed me to kind of stand out as an individual, but helping people within those pockets, if you will. Like I wasn't, part of it. I was right on the outside, but I at least could be relevant enough. So I think just that difference, at least how I felt, was complementary to me wanting to help people. even though I didn't feel like I was a part of, popular culture, especially growing up, right? Everyone has like an awkward phase, and mine just probably lasted way too long. But I always felt like my unique attributes were about other people, not so much about me. It was about helping everyone else around me.
Which kind of makes sense a lot of times, right? You see individuals. Did I hear you say you were a middle child?
Yeah,
Are you okay?
yeah,
Yeah. So it's like you feel a little different, anyways. You're kind of in the middle. You're on the outside, and it's almost like there's these opportunities to be able to be the person that helps you see the world a little bit differently. Which
yeah.
I think in a lot of cases, where the education, comes from, which is cool. All right. So before we get into these challenges, one last thing on your journey. So the education piece is very fascinating because you created something from scratch with that group. So
Mhm.
sounds like there was accomplishment and achievement there.
Yeah.
Then you went on with the sales position. You moved your way up. You became a trainer there, accomplishment there. Then, of course, with the DSO and helping them get started, an accomplishment there. At each one of those stages, Tom, I mean, it feels like accomplishment and achievement. But I know one of the things that you mentioned kind of in your challenges was this self doubt. So,
Yeah.
where does that come from? I mean, again, I'm just looking at it from the outside in of what you have accomplished. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are watching this going to be like, okay, Tom has accomplished a lot of things at these different stages. But if you could get into maybe that first challenge of that self doubt and kind of how does that mask with what you did accomplish in your journey?
Yeah, it's funny how like hindsight works, right? If you look back long enough, or if you try to look at all the pieces that led to one another, it all makes sense, right? Like, yeah, I had a fantastic evolution to where I am today. But when you're living it in the present moment, it is just completely different. And it's even true now as I am on this new leg of my journey, building something for myself. You don't have the experience, you don't have the perspective, you're not walking in the path you ever walked before. So what fills that void? It is that doubt. And this is really how I'm crafting my own coaching to help others. Again, it's wild how things come back around and complement you in your next phase. So out of all of those journeys, right, from education to wanting to grow, segueing into sales, succeeding there, and then transitioning again, at the precipice was always this like really heavy doubt and I wouldn't say negative self-talk, but just like this debilitating inner voice that just challenges everything you do and every decision you want to make because you're living that edge every day. And you have the desire. I knew I wanted more for myself. I knew I had more to offer the world. I had more potential to fulfill. I just didn't know how. I didn't know what it would look like. So you can't. For me, I was susceptible to doubt. My own inner voice was my own worst enemy, and I would say, "Well, I've never done that before, so I can't do that. Oh, I have a master's in education. I should be lucky to be here. Like I got to stay here." Or yeah, sales is great, but how am I ever going to work for a larger capacity? And you constantly second guess yourself based on nothing. And looking back, I mean, all of those emotions were completely false. They just got amplified because you ruminate on them, and if you ruminate on them long enough, they become very strong. And I know that's true because I work with clients now that experience the same thing. And over the years, I just got exhausted of making an excuse after an excuse, or having that feeling. I would be very excited about the potential of doing something different, or wanting to do something different, and then a second later be completely crushed by my own limiting belief. So it was like this constant like struggle. And then I started looking at it objectively, and I'm like, none of this makes sense, right? Because if I look back, I was successful, right? And if you look at it objectively, if you look at it in plain sight, yeah, I was able to accomplish a lot of things. So why does this doubt keep coming up? And I had to live through that experience of getting out of my way, literally just pausing that inner rumination and looking at things differently, absolutely more objectively, black and white, like, here's what I did, here's how I did it, and here's the result. And that allowed me to kind of get through just that barrier that I, for whatever reason, built around myself over the years.
So, biggest lesson for anybody watching this that is either like in stage 1 or 2 of their career, or they're in stage 4, they've progressed like you have, but they have dealt with or currently dealing with a lot of this self doubt and insecurity, while at the same time feeling that pull to want to grow and do better things and accomplish. What's one of the lessons that, looking back, that you could share with people from your journey of how you were able to do it?
Yeah, looking at things with less emotion. And if our emotions will get the best of us, and generally they're negative emotions, right? They're the doubt, the fear, the uncertainty, the constant questioning, the what ifs, like hypothetical. I would live in fictitious scenarios. I'm like, why am I even putting energy into that, right? So separating yourself as much from that emotion and that energy, because it's either keeping you stuck or it's leading you in the wrong direction. And the way to do that is by trying to tilt the scale in a more objective way. So if you try to manage and track and identify what are the aspects that I need to focus on. Let's get grounded for a minute. Let's not think so broadly, because that's just a lot of noise. You have to get really specific, really nuanced. All right, if I want to get promoted, if I want to, segue into a new career, if I want to try something different, if I want to, if I know I want to go this direction, what do I have to do? Break it down into objectable, tangible pieces. And what that does is then puts the energy and power into things you can actually control. It's no longer hypothetical. You're no longer just thinking about things, you're doing. For me, it was writing things down and organizing information and acting on that information. I mean, it sounds basic, but I literally made pages and pages of like to-do lists and ideas, and just what would it take if I wanted to do something. Break it down as much as I can, research, add more information, and now you have tangible bits of information that you could look at, understand, learn, and cross off the list as you go. And then it just feeds this other cycle of action, accomplishment, and reassurance. And then that emotion, that negative emotion, starts to wane away, because you're no longer spending your time on that. You're spending your time on objective information, actions, tangibles, and then like the script starts to shift.
When did you build that system for yourself? Was that something that was in the teaching phase as you then went into sales, or like when did you start to actually put together that system, which
Yeah.
very helpful?
Yeah, that system came out about a year and a half ago, out of just sheer, I wouldn't say desperation, but that breaking point for me, because it was 3 times over where I kind of experienced the same thing. And it was really the impetus of what allowed me to get to where I am now. Because I had this idea that I wanted to do something for myself. I wanted to go on this, it's funny because at the point I never thought I would be an entrepreneur or a business owner, or doing what I'm doing today, because I already subscribed that was completely out of range. And I literally have done everything I ever felt I couldn't do. So I proved myself wrong many times. But it was at that moment where, I had this vision, what I'm doing now, about a year, two years ago. And I'm like, I want to do it, but why do I keep feeling this excuse? And I completely got exhausted of being in that mental state. So I think it was just out of sheer will, force myself to completely remove that emotional side of me and say, I'm going to get as objective as possible. And, I'm going to give this my authentic try, but I can't let any of these emotional variables take effect. It has to be completely objective, completely data driven. And I literally had to like micromanage every thought and action in order to just get moving. And then, momentum took over, and now it's a much easier cadence for me. But then looking back, so I was about like, I don't know, a year into just the exploratory phase of creating a business. And then I looked back and I said, wow, I actually made a lot of progress. How did I do that? And it was just these recurring themes of, as I was reflecting, of, well, I had a goal, and I identified everything that was in front of that goal. And it really was started with me. So what are the actions I took? And I just literally just connected the dots of what I did, what the result was, and how to repeat that. And then just this system kind of emerged almost within a day of me reflecting. And like, wow, that's actually the cycle that I repeated is identifying a goal, identifying the obstacles, identifying the actions, and reflecting on the results. And I just did that over and over and over again. And again, what that did was empowered me to be more objective and just put aside the emotion for a minute. And I didn't have to ruminate or reflect or hypothesize or, just think anymore. I just had to do. And it's the action piece that is the differentiating maker. As long you can take action, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the correct action or the right action. It just has to be action. Because for me, I would be paralyzed in constant rumination.
You talked a little bit about desperation, and I'm
Yeah.
curious with that story that you just shared, was there a moment, was there an event that took you from one of the challenges that I know you spoke about, which is feeling stuck, to starting to take this action and being okay with regardless of what action it was, which I think is an awesome insight, right? As you
Yeah.
have learned, Tom, and as we all know as business owners, entrepreneurs, is that sometimes it's just like getting up and doing something and not knowing what you're going to do, but just like moving through space and time, right? You're like, I just need to just do something different. I don't know what's going to come
Yeah.
from this. But you mentioned desperation. Was there something that you can share that like was the difference between, okay, I was sitting in this, I felt stuck, and now I'm actually going to just start to do something?
Yeah. No, it was such a dramatic moment for me because I'm literally here in my office, right? And this was again about 2 years ago. And I'm just racking my brain of like I want to do something, like I want to transition my career. I want to follow a path that of all the people that I admire, all right, like in the industry, it's just there's these amazing business owners and amazing people who have made great accomplishments. And I'm like, well, why can't I do that? And it was at the moment like, well, what am I even doing then? Why am I idolizing someone? What they did was they didn't make excuses. They just did it. They didn't have all the resources. They just took it and ran. Like I want that confidence. I want that boldness to just say I'm going to do it. And then again, that like inner voice was like, well, you never done it before. And I'm like, I'm done with this. I literally stood up and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't have this completely inner battle of having the aspirations and the desire, and at the same time having an excuse. I'm like, I'm finished with this. And I remember standing up, literally pacing in my office, just being like, all right, what do I got to do then? Because I can't do this anymore because I had such a passion that I wanted to develop, but I also constantly was making an excuse and getting in my way. So it was at that moment where I was like, fine, no more emotions. I literally grabbed a pen and paper and I started writing things down. And now I have like probably hundreds of notes, just hundreds of pages of notes, because that's what I had to do. I had to get my thoughts and my emotions on paper because that allowed me to control them. And then everything just kind of, fell into place there. But yeah, that was the breaking point where I just stood up and it was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, and at first glance, again, somebody looks at your journey, they look at the trajectory of teaching and then the sales and then work as, helping that DSO grow, which is, I mean, that's to me as someone who's been in the industry, like that says a lot about bringing somebody like in yourself to help them grow
Yeah.
as far as that's concerned. But you still felt stuck, like you mentioned. What's been the biggest lesson learned when you look back at being able to find a way to get unstuck? What would you share with somebody that is watching this right now that is going, oh yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm stuck. And and of course they're going to say, yeah, Tom, you make that sound so easy, which you're not intending to make it easy because it wasn't. It's something that we all have our own journey. But what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from being stuck, even though you were moving up career wise in different jobs and things like that?
Yeah. Over a long enough perspective, it all makes sense, right? But again, like we talked about earlier, when you're living this day in and day out, like when you're on the precipice of that, it's very difficult. The absolute most important thing for me was action. It was taking action, and when I say action, don't quantify action by what type of action, a dramatic action or short action. It's just doing something. And a lot of times people are looking for, well, what's the one action that will have the most results, right? You're always looking for that 80-20, or you're always looking for that, that one secret to open up the doors. Don't spend your time on trying to find the right action to take. Just take action, because it's the action of taking action, right? Like, as silly as that sounds, it's that behavior of just doing something. And for me, it was starting to write things down. Like, literally the first action I took, reflecting back, was probably deciding, like, I had enough. And two was, let me just start writing things down. And that was the first action that kind of tipped the first domino. And once it doesn't have to be the right action or the most likely action or the biggest action. It could be as small as, I'm going to write one thing down today, or I'm going to make one small decision, or I don't know, I'm going to spend 1 minute today doing this. It could be as tiny and nuanced as it is. But what that does is prove to yourself, okay, there's something I can do. No matter how paralyzed I am, how much anxiety I have, how much I do feel stuck, there's always something you can do. Again, it doesn't have to be a big action. It could be very, very small. And then another day goes by and it's like, okay, well, I did that yesterday, so let me do something else today. And now all of a sudden you're on this cycle of, well, I can take actions, I can do something. And even if it's in a broad direction, that's okay, because you're building that habit and you're building that confidence and you're building that reassurance that you can do something. And that's the most important thing. And that comes through taking action. And then over time, you learn, you refine, and you close the knowledge gap. Because at first, I didn't know how to start a business. I had zero knowledge in that field. Now I have quite a bit of knowledge. I literally just had to close that knowledge gap over time. I wrote down everything I didn't know, and I learned it along the way. But it was that first action of, I got to do something. And I didn't learn how to be a business owner within a few hours or overnight. I learned that over time, but I wouldn't have been able to learn that if I didn't take that initial step of, let me just identify what I don't know, or identify where I want to go and figure out how to get there. So it's that action piece that allows you to just get a little forward moving. And think of, like, I don't know, pushing a car or starting up something, right? Or getting a rocket off the ground, right? Like, most of the energy comes from when you're stuck or when you're still, to getting that first little bit of movement. And then over time, it's easier. Your velocity takes over, and it's easier because you built that muscle of taking action and accomplishing things. It is hard in the start, but again, focus on smaller actions because they're more digestible. They're less intimidating.
So here's something interesting to think about as I'm hearing you tell this. You had to take a lot of actions from the time that you were working as a teacher and in sales and the work in the DSO space. What was different, Tom, from the actions that you're talking about to get unstuck versus the actions that you were taking in order to be able to make a difference in those organizations? I mean, now that you've been able to reflect and look back, one could say, okay, well, you did take action, right? But what was different about this action versus what you had done in the past?
So this action this time was to do something I thought I was never able to do, right? So it had that behind it. It had this, like, well, I want to prove myself wrong, right? Like, because that version of me that was negative and the imposter, right? Like, why did he have such a loud voice? Why was he so influential in what I succeeded or failed at in life? Like, why was I giving that version of myself so much energy and power? So there was this point of, like, well, I want to kind of prove myself wrong, or I want to prove myself right. Like, and this is for me now. This is personal. This is something that I aspire to be, is feeling meaning and purpose in my life and in my professional life. Like, I wanted that. And again, like, as I look at other people, successful, happy business owners, I'm like, they did it. how are we so different? Right? Like, no one's born with all the answers. Like, people had to learn along the way. So, like, why couldn't I do that? Or at least I want to try. And if I failed or if it didn't turn out, then great, fine. I'll reassess then. But I at least wanted to give it my authentic, genuine effort without any variables I couldn't control. So that this action this time around was because it was so much more personal and it had so much more purpose behind it.
It's amazing how many actions we take for other people's dreams, right? Which is,
Oh yeah,
I mean, I think that's a big piece of this. And I mean, and dreams can be a big word. I mean, if you're working in the teacher space, I mean, it sounded like there was a community of those that you were working with. You all wanted to build something impactful, and you did. The
yeah.
fact that you started from scratch, and especially in the DSO space, all of that. But that takes us to this last challenge you and I spoke about, which is navigating all of that in an effort for you to be able to find your true purpose. And there are a lot of people going through that right now. Like, I feel like we're in these unprecedented times where more than ever, individuals who have worked for others are looking at their own life. You just spoke about it in your own action, and are trying to understand, like, how could I create something for myself? Or how could I take a passion that I like and build a business around it? But that was a challenge for you. Talk about that a little bit, about finding your alignment in regards to landing where you are now in this, your own business, and helping, executives with leadership and all of that. How were you able to navigate that? What was one of the biggest challenges that you struggled with?
So yeah, you mentioned a good point of, kind of being on someone else's dream, right? Or going along someone else's journey. And, the biggest metaphor that comes to my mind is, like, think of a career ladder, right? Like, yeah, I'm climbing a career ladder, and there's value in there, right? Of course, you have to get that experience, and you're growing and you're evolving. But for me, that ladder was leaning against someone else's wall, and I was climbing a ladder, and I was on a trajectory to go in someone else's direction. I was like, yeah, that's all well and good, but I had higher aspirations for myself. I wanted to lean into that internal calling. I knew there was more for me, and I knew I had more to offer the world, and I had potential that I didn't even tap into yet. So I'm like, yeah, I can keep going up this ladder, and the climb is getting harder and harder, and I'm not enjoying the climb as much as I used to, or I can get down and build my own ladder. And both directions are hard. Both options have their own difficulties. But for me, it was that living a life of purpose that aligned with my values, that I wanted to help people. Like, that's what I wanted to build. So I got down, and I started from scratch, right? And the lesson there was that I had all the resources already. I had all the capabilities and the capacity to do it. I just didn't have the knowledge or the experience, which, again, you could break down in an objective way. Yeah, not knowing something is just as vital and important as knowing something. So once you identify what you don't know, great. Now you just figure out a way to learn it. And it's just, I mean, and now there's information everywhere. So the excuse of, well, I'll never learn that, well, that wasn't valid anymore, because I literally could just I can find out most information now. Everyone can, very easily. There's enough smart people who have done it. There's enough AI and data everywhere. So you can find the information needed. So it's not a lack of information that's holding you back. It's, just the belief that you can do it. And I didn't have to acquire any new resources, skills, or talents. I just had to get out of my own way and uncover what was already there. And that's the work that I do now as a coach. And it's funny, I pretty much help other people with my own struggles from years ago.
So, safe to say, when you start to work with them, you can share with them, been there, done that. I know what you're going through. And I'm curious about this coaching program, because you made the decision, like you mentioned, to work with executives and help a lot of these individuals. How have you been able to, package your experience and translate that to something that then gets their attention in regards to, like, why Tom, right? You mentioned that there's a lot of information out there. I think your story is a big piece of this because again, like they can know and understand that you've been through that. And there's certainly things that you can help them with, but talk a little bit about how you've been able to package your experience and then create something that is valuable to those that you're going to serve.
Yeah. So running a business is a whole nother thing because you can have a great service or product and it can be really, really good, but then getting it out to the masses is a whole nother endeavor, right? So I'll talk about kind of two things here. First, I'm more sensitive and I resonate more with those who have similar experiences or challenges or, you know, mindsets than I do, right? Like than I have. So I kind of can connect well with those who are very familiar to my own journey. Uh, and then there's like this energy alignment, and then we just click, right? So you can kind of, when you walk into a room or you meet someone for the first time, it's like, oh, we get each other, right? And then now you're like best friends forever, right? Um, so I'm very aware of those connections. So that does help me, be successful and meet people and connect with the right people and work with like these amazing, passionate individuals that I'm already working with. But getting that out to the masses, you have to kind of really believe, and this is like another, layer of the journey. You have to believe in what you're presenting, right? So now here I am, okay, a year and a half, 2 years later. Now here I've done all that, but like, okay, building a viable business is a whole nother journey. So you have to truly, truly believe that what you have is something that's valuable to others. How do you present it to them? How do you expose it to them? How do you describe it to them that's relevant to them? And this comes back to being an educator, being great in sales, great in business development, of really connecting with somebody, really understanding their interests and their pain and their challenges and how what you are bringing is a solution for them. So, whenever I have conversations with people or whenever I'm putting messages out there or, social media or, podcasts, webinars, programs and courses that I design, it's always with, okay, how is it helping those types of individuals that have similar experiences to me? If I were to create this business just for myself, would this answer my challenges from years ago? And it's kind of connecting those dots in different timelines. Because again, I'm attracting similar individuals that have similar, internal emotional struggles like I had, right? And there's really great accomplished, people that I'm working with, but everyone does have that emotional side to them. And I like to say I work on the human side of business leadership. And, we're all people, we're all humans, we all are emotional beings. So many of us do have the same challenges. They just come in different degrees. So if I just keep that in mind as I'm building and marketing and talking to people and, when you ask me questions, trying to think of how does this connect and relate to the audience that might be listening.
When you look back at this journey, was there a dark moment, a really tough moment, through a lot of that where you had to really, really dig deep, meaning like you talked about the struggle that you had, the insecurity, a lot of that you were able to plow through. But as you know, Tom, all of us that go through anything like that, there are tough times, and many times people don't see those things. Those are what we deal with. Anything that you can think back of that like still to this day you draw on, you look at the progress you've made, you look at now creating this business and the great things that you're doing, but that keeps you grounded. Is there anything that you can think back of like through that journey where you hit some really tough times that you connect with every once in a while?
Yeah, because perspective definitely helps, right? And again, if you're building something day in and day out, you definitely you get that tunnel vision, and you only really look in one direction. But it's pausing and acknowledging your progress, and again, acknowledging it in an objective way. You don't have to necessarily have an emotion about it, but looking back and say, all right, what did I do? Where did I come from? What did I create? What did I achieve? What didn't I achieve? Okay, well, let's figure out why. And it's looking back objectively. And yeah, you could look back and be proud, of course. Like you want to be, happy of what you've made or the progress you made or the journey that you completed. If I look back, 20 years, like, yeah, that was a pretty phenomenal experience. But what did I actually do? Because again, everyone says, well, how do I do this? Like, how do I get unstuck? Right. So you have to get tangible. So I try to identify what were the behaviors that I did, what were the actions I took, what were the steps I took. Like if I can go back and write a book about it, like is there a step by step, or is it just, theory and philosophy? I want a script, right? Like I want a step by step, give me the plan. So if you try to look back and identify specifics, that allows you to feel accomplished. It's like, oh, I actually did a lot. And I look back, I mean, I can't believe how much stuff I actually built and wrote and designed. And I'm like, I did a lot of work over the last 2 years. I'm impressed myself sometimes. So it's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a much different mindset to be able
Yeah.
to push out some of the emotions. And speaking of those emotions, you mentioned it, starting a business is real, especially when you've never done it before. What have been some of your biggest lessons in starting this business and some of the challenges that have to overcome? I mean, you're in a much better place, obviously, to be able to manage those through your experience and being honest with
Yeah.
yourself and acknowledging where you've come from. That being said, something out there for people that are sitting on the sidelines right now, they're looking at your story and saying, okay, he's speaking my language, but I can't jump. Like the chasm is too big. There's too many unknowns. How have you been able to check off that list of getting through starting a business? Because no matter how accomplished you are in other organizations that you work at, as you have learned, starting this is much different. So what
Yeah.
are some lessons that you've gone through there?
Yeah. So starting a business, yes, most of it is unknown, right? Again, you can find this information out there if you spend enough time and talk to enough people, right? But at the same time, if you had all the information, would you still move forward? And that was a question that I challenged myself with years ago, was like, is it really a lack of information that's preventing me from trying this? Is it really the knowledge gap, or is it something different? And if I had, all the books in the world, would I even read them? Right? So nonetheless, it was that action of committing to it and saying, okay, I'm going to try this, and not not getting overwhelmed. So that was the big piece of it is, yeah, I mean, there's a million things to do when you're starting a business, probably more than a million, right? And if you think of everything all at once, you're going to get completely paralyzed. What's the most important thing I got to do today? What's step number one right now? Okay, what's step two and three? All right, tomorrow, what do I have to do? And it's organizing yourself. And yes, there's a big chasm of information or lack of information that I needed to close, but I couldn't do that in a day. But if I think, okay, a year from now, where do I want to be? 2 years from now, where do I want to be? 10 years from now, working backwards. Yeah, over the course of a month, I can get a lot done. Over the course of a day, not so much. But I can set myself up and be consistent. So it's consistency, it's daily work, it's one thing builds upon the other. And then before you know it, you are closing that knowledge gap. And okay, even just starting an LLC was so intimidating to me. I literally said, like, oh, I'll never be a business owner. And now I was like, oh, I just had to like go online and do it. Like, what, there was no big deal about it. It's funny in hindsight, but when it's ahead of you, it's absolutely intimidating. Right. And I was like, how do I even, like, I got to talk to a bank? Like, I don't even know how to do that. Right. And now it's just like, oh, yeah, it's my accounts. So it's funny how all of the things I thought were so grand really were just another check off the list.
So you've checked off a lot of those things off the list, which is awesome. Which leads me to having you share what some are your current projects. Love to have you share like what you're working on now,
Yeah.
what's it look like, and I think most importantly, people learning about how they can work with you and all that good stuff. And then we got some final questions as we wrap.
Cool. Yeah. So really the core of my business is direct one-on-one coaching. And my style of coaching is really reflective, challenging. It allows someone to change their perspective. I mean, pretty much like what we just talked about in the last 40 minutes. It really empower someone to get out of that emotional state and get moving. And it's absolutely amazing when I get to witness someone doing that on the other side of me. And it's absolutely driving my passion. And I mean, coaching is so effective, and it's I've had people say it's better than therapy. It's better, it's they've had epiphanies, they've had these breakthroughs. And yeah, I mean, it's very powerful of when we challenge our perspectives, what's on the other side. And again, it's not giving you more information, it's uncovering what's already in the way, what's in the way, and getting to your strengths and what's already there. So the coaching is phenomenal. And that's most of what I do, is the one-on-one coaching with any individual who has those aspirations, who know they're meant for more, but there's just stuff in the way, right? I also do group coaching and team development and team alignment. So if, say, an executive has a team of frontline employees, or their core team that they want, to set goals and align to goals, I do team development. I also do leadership training and leadership development. So if you want to become a better speaker, communicator, if you want to be better at strategic planning and strategy and goal setting and overcoming challenges, I work on that too. I'm also a career coach. So if you're looking to progress in your career, if you're looking to just sharpen your skills, great, we can go through a program like that. So I have a couple of unique avenues I can go down, but it really is geared towards helping people be the best versions of themselves, and just getting out of their own way and finding the skills to be the best professional that they can be.
Do you feel finally aligned when you look back at your story? I know one of your challenges that you spoke about was all the pieces and parts, but do you feel like it has all now come together and you're in the flow and you're doing what you were supposed to do?
Absolutely. And it's wild, because I literally built a dream I once aspired to have. I 2 years ago, I was like, I want to help people in my own way. And now I have that. I built a tangible business on that. So it's pretty phenomenal that I was able to envision it, do that personal work and that growth and that evolution. And here I am. And I don't take that for granted. So every time I'm working with a client or working with people, I keep that in mind. And it's that humble beginnings, right? It's that nod to who I was a couple of years ago. Was like, we got this. Like, I'm doing what I wanted to do, and now I can build a business on that. I mean, that's winning, right? That's phenomenal, and that's what I admired in so many other professionals in the industry. It was like, people are happy in their roles, and they built something that's meaningful. Like, I could do that too.
And you've done it. And I just want to say congrats on your story. I
Thanks,
think it's exciting to kind of see where it goes. And three last things I'd love to leave people with.
Yeah.
Number one would be a favorite book that you could leave people like that's touched you, that's helped you in your journey, that could be good for somebody else to pick up.
Yeah, Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. Really great. He works with like professional athletes, but it's a lot of that mindset, and it's that, if you are very, very successful in business or athletics or life, what have you, there are common threads that are very similar, and kind of like what we chatted about. It's, you don't necessarily need the information. You just have to have that consistent drive. But that book was really, really phenomenal to get me. Yeah, I wish I read it years ago, because I would have had a lot more answers. But it just reinforced like everything that I've went through, and that I know high capacity, successful people have gone through.
And now that it's 2026 and podcasts have finally found their way in this world of marketing, which I love, finally, after all these years. And so we can kind of add this to the list. How about a favorite podcast that you like or you listen to frequently?
In the industry or
in the industry. Yeah, we could go in the industry and out of the industry. One maybe for dental, and then maybe on the outside.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you're doing great work. There's a lot of doctors who are doing great work. Not to name one, to be honest, John, but I think if you have someone passionate like yourself bringing people together, I mean, that's valuable to listen to. My favorite podcast overall, Dr. Mark Hyman. He was really helpful during like COVID time, and just because I'm like a fitness and nutrition guy, like I enjoy that. I find his approach very Very straightforward, very relatable, but also very scientific and provides a lot of resources and support. So I listen to that one pretty consistently. But I mean, there's a ton in dental, and I think if anyone's listening, just search them out. You'll be able to get some really good information because there's a lot of really helpful, knowledgeable people who are getting on these podcast circuits that can share a lot of these nuggets with.
And just so you know, everybody, we will put all of Tom's information in the show notes, whether you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. We'll make sure that's in there so you can reach out to him and spend some time with him. The last thing I wanted to leave everybody with is a bit of advice that you would share. I mean, you've shared a lot of good insight today. I think a lot of nuggets that people can learn from and draw on in their own journey. But what would you like to leave people with? Little piece of advice.
There's so much, right? Know that you already have the resources, you already have the skills and capacity to do what you want to do. Um, you can't wait for someone else to do it for you. uh, and think, I would say, really think and challenge yourself of are you where you want to be? And if you're not, well, don't wait. If you're not where you want to be in life, at least in your professional life, there's there's things you can do to fulfill yourself professionally. Time goes rather quick when you get older. I have young kids, like another year gone is like that now. So, if you have an aspiration, if you have a dream that you want to accomplish, it's not just going to happen. You have to build it. And both directions will have their difficulties, but you get to choose, and you get to choose what the end result is.
Awesome. Tom, thanks for your time. This is a great conversation. Excited to watch you continue to grow. Thanks for sharing your story, and excited for more people to learn about your work. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, John. This was great. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely.